Hi everyone, welcome back. So today I am going to be doing an Authortube tag. This one is the writing process tag. I've been wanting to do this one for a while, and so I decided I'm just finally going to make the dang video. Here we go. Number one, what genres do you write? Well, mostly fantasy. But that's not it. I do also like to write a good bit of thriller. I like to write some horror. I like dystopia. I also will occasionally write some political satire stuff. But anytime I'm writing, even if it's like a thriller or something else, fantasy is going to be in there. There are always going to be fantasy elements. Like when I wrote a thriller, what did I immediately think of as my thriller idea? An Encantado, which is basically a shape-shifting dolphin that goes on a murder spree. Yeah, my brain. My brain, everyone. Number two, what setting gets you the most productive? Well, I can't be in my most productive setting because one of them is when I go to like write-ins where I'm surrounded by a lot of people. For whatever reason, that makes me want to write. I would love to do like a writing retreat sometime, but obviously that's not a possibility at this time. The second most productive for me would be live streams, which is kind of ironic because I don't like setting up or hosting live streams. I get really, really nervous about it. I don't know what it is because I go on camera every day to teach, but for some reason when it's a live stream, I start like sweating. I think because I just feel like really awkward. Like I'm an awkward person and my students already know this, but normal everyday people do not know this about me. So when I say something awkward, I'm worried they're going to like judge me. 3, if you have multiple story ideas, how do you go about picking which one to start on first? Usually, if it's a deadline situation, I'll go for whichever one has the closest deadline. If there's no deadline involved, I will typically go with whichever one is the most enticing to me and which one I have the best idea for. Like if I have a good idea of where the story is going and if I have a good idea of how the characters are going to develop, then that's the one I'll usually go with first. If I don't have an idea of where the characters are going to go or where the plot's going to go yet in my head, then I'll kind of let it marinate with me for a little bit and wait until I have an idea of how to move the plot forward from the very beginning scenes before I write it. Number 4, do you outline? Sometimes, with varying results, usually all of them going horribly wrong. I'm not great at sticking to outlines. I've done a couple of loose outlines, usually for NaNoWriMo, because I know I have to write it in a month, so I want to have like some ideas of potential directions I could go in if I'm feeling stuck. But other than that, I don't typically outline, especially if I'm doing like a novella. I just kind of write it and then I do what's like basically a reverse outline after the book is finished, but I don't usually outline before I've written the book. Number 5, do you start your first draft with pen and paper, typewriter, or computer? I used to always do pen and paper because I was horrible at typing. Now I mostly use the computer just for the sake of not having to type it a second time. Sometimes if I'm feeling stuck, I'll go back to using pen and paper, but now I mostly start my first drafts on my computer. Number 6, what do you do to get through writer's block? I watch a lot of TV shows, usually in the genre that I'm writing. Sometimes I will also read webtoons, and that'll inspire me as well, or I'll read a book that I really like or reread an old favorite. So those are a couple of things I do. I also will occasionally do writing prompts, or I'll see an anthology that I find interesting and go, ooh, I like that idea. I'm going to write a story about this. Sometimes it just takes a pretty picture or the right kind of idea to get me out of that rut. Number 7, do you format your project from the beginning or worry about it later? I worry about it later because I tend to be very obsessive with things. So if I try to focus on the formatting in the beginning, it will never get done. Number 8, do you edit as you go or when you finished with the first draft? Usually I do not edit as I go. I did in the beginning and it would take me forever to finish. So now I will sometimes edit as I go but only if I've really written myself into a corner. Because at that point, usually if you've written yourself into a corner, you need to go back and revisit and see, why did I write myself into a corner? How did I get here? And how do I un-F myself? And then next one, number 9. After finishing your drafts and manuscript, how long do you give it a break before you start going back over it? Do you give it a break at all? It depends again on the story. If I'm strapped for time, then I won't give it a break at all. And also just depending on the project, sometimes I like to have it fresh in my mind when I go through it because I have the memory span of a flipping goldfish. So sometimes if I leave a draft for too long, I will just go back to the draft and just be like, I have no memory of this place. And I will have no clue how to edit it. So sometimes for me, it's better to do it right away because I still remember what I wanted to change about it. Because sometimes as I'm writing my zero draft, I'll already have ideas in my head of like, oh, this is how I'm going to fix this problem. So it just depends. Number 10, is there something that you prefer to do to get you through writing? Playing music? No, because any sort of noise distracts me. TV? Also no. Having a favorite drink? Also no, because I'm clumsy and knowing me, I would probably spill it all over my computer. Same thing with food. I do, however, like to have my scented candles. Those will usually help me get into like the mood, the mindset of writing. So that's pretty much the only thing I do to really get me through writing. And I'll occasionally take breaks to get snacks, and that's when I'll have my snack, or I'll have rewards for finishing writing sessions. But that's pretty much it. And then 11, do you schedule your writing sessions? Sometimes. Usually I'm just kind of squeezing it in whenever I can. I generally do not write as much when I'm in the midst of editing, I've noticed. Like I have a very different brain for writing than I do for editing, and sometimes it's really hard for me to focus on writing when I'm in the editing mode, unless I'm really enjoying what I'm writing. Do you have word count or chapter goals for your writing sessions? Again, sometimes. It depends. I have done a couple of 10K days. Generally, I'll have a word count for the month, and sometimes I will hit it and sometimes I won't. I don't typically have writing session goals because I found that if I set writing session goals, oftentimes I'll get done less because my brain just thinks of that big number and goes, nope, we're not doing the writing today. So I prefer to just go into it without a goal. And if I get done a lot of words that day, then it's awesome. Because I find when I also set a goal, sometimes I'll set the goal too low. And then I'll get to the goal and I'll be like, oh, I hit my goal, I'm done. But I really just prefer to write until I feel like I'm either don't have any ideas left for that particular session, or I feel that my concentration is fading. And that's when I'll kind of switch gears and then maybe come back to it a few hours later, a few minutes later, however long it takes for my brain to reset. I hope that answers the question. 13, are there any quirky things you do to make your projects more fun? Not really. Sometimes I'll throw in really silly references to memes and things like that if I'm getting bored with the project. That's about the only thing I've done. Or just to life in general. Like I made a joke about someone's haircut and their attitude because there's always that like one customer that's just a total diva. So one scene in the book, which was supposed to be like a slower scene, and I don't like writing slower scenes, I kind of made a comment about that customer and said like, and Amy asked like, oh, did any of the customers complain? And the person who was in charge of the shop said, oh, just the one with the Karen haircut that thinks vaccines cause autism. And that made my day for whatever reason and made my writing session better. So, whatever gets you through your writing project, I guess. 14, do you like to work on multiple projects at one time? Yes, I am a huge project hopper. I find that if I try to focus on just one project at a time, I will lose my interest in that project very, very quickly. And then instead of being productive, I will just put off writing it or I'll write trash. So I like having multiple projects because sometimes I'm just in a different brain space and I don't want to write one type of thing, but I do want to write another type of thing. Sometimes they're the same genre. Sometimes they're completely different genres. Sometimes they're the same exact thing. There's different points of view. They're both YA fantasy, maybe, for example. So I like to project hop. I am a project hopper. 15. How often do you research what you're writing? All the time. I cannot tell you how many times that I was like, yes, I'm going to get 3,000 words done today. And then I get about maybe 200 words in and I research something and I fall down the researching rabbit hole quite often. And so I'll just come up from the research rabbit hole, realize that 2 hours have passed and go, well, shit. I do research a lot, especially if I'm doing something historical, which is what I did for Nymph's Revenge because it was more of a early 1900s setting. How do you organize your projects? Haha, that's cute. You think I have an organization system. I have a bunch of files that have different labels of varying chaotic organization where it's like it's kind of organized, but it's not. I guess I kind of sort of organize things into projects because I use for the words and everything's under projects, like different project names. That's about the closest I have to any sort of organizational system. And I make a lot of folders on Google Docs. I don't really have a good organizational system. I don't take organizational advice for me on organizing your projects. I can organize other things. My projects is not one of them. Do you reward or punish yourself for achieving or missing out on your writing goals? I do occasionally reward myself. I have anxiety, so that's enough punishment when I don't reach my goals. Enough said. 18. Are there any works similar to your projects that you look for and use for inspiration and or comparison? Yes, sometimes. For the Gemstone Massacre series, I'm pulling a lot from the TV show Merlin and from Once Upon a Time because these are both things that I really liked and they also inspired the series to begin with. I also pulled a little bit from the Magic Study series. The first book is Poison Study. It's by one of my favorite authors. So I have 3 different things that I'm kind of sort of pulling from that I have as inspiration and comparison. As for the Nymph's Revenge series, that was all my brain. And then a little bit of fairy tale, a little bit of like dark Rapunzel-y, Rapinchi's daughter inspiration. I don't really have like a TV show or book that I was pulling from aside from fairy tales. 19. How early do you wait to start looking for and hiring editors? I'm either, there's no in between for me. I either have it planned out a year in advance before the book is even done, or I'm looking for editors a day before I need to get it to an editor. No in between with me. Really not. Number 20. If you finished a first draft or manuscript, tell us how you felt afterwards. Pick your favorite if you're not through your first draft yet and tell us how you're feeling about it at the moment. Whenever I finish first draft, I usually feel incredibly relieved. And then the next day I just feel complete anxiety because I realize like, now I have to edit. Well, shit. So those are all my answers for the tag. If you are an Authortuber, I am tagging all of you, anyone who would like to do this. I invite you to do this as well, because no one tagged me, and I said, F it, I'm going to do this anyway. But that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, make sure to click that like button and subscribe to my channel down below, and let me know a little bit about your writing process. Alright, thanks. Bye!